Imagine what it would be like to be alive at 120 and still feel full of strength. That's where Moses found himself at the end of his life. But today, the average life expectancy for a man is around 72 years or so. Of course, there are different variables at play, but even if you broke all the records and lived to 120 years, it's pretty likely that no one would describe you as vigorous, more like hanging on by a thread. Yet, Scripture tells us in Deuteronomy 34:7 that Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eye was undimmed and his vigor unabated. That is shocking. Moses was 120 years old and still quite spry, yet he died. Earlier in Deuteronomy, we learned that Moses disobeyed God at a very significant point. And because of that, God promised that he'd see the promised land, but not enter it. He would lead Israel in the desert for 40 years, yet he would die before he could enter the land because of one sin. That judgment, it seems harsh, but we must understand how serious our sin is against God. Sin itself is an assault on his goodness and love. So obedience to him is the main way to show love toward God. Sin cost the Son of God his life. Therefore, we must take any and all sin with great enormity. It's important to see God's grace in Moses' health at the end of his life. But more than that, the Gospel of Matthew paints a beautiful picture in chapter 17. Moses might have died before he crossed the Jordan, but at Jesus' transfiguration, the man who led Israel through the Red Sea finally set foot in the Promised Land. Sin is awful, but God's grace is bigger.